December 11th, 1944. You are told the Ardennes is a quiet sector, rest, routine, maybe even Christmas mail. Then at 5:30 in the morning, the world erupts. Artillery shreds the tree line, 250,000 Germans and 1,400 tanks smash through the fog, and everything you thought you knew about war disintegrates. Before sunrise, you are no longer a rookie. You are fighting to survive the largest, bloodiest American battle of World War II. But what did those first chaotic hours feel like from inside the foxhole? 4 days before the barrage, you step off the truck in the Ardennes and breathe in air that bites your lungs. The 106th Infantry Division is fresh from stateside camps, barely out of basic, barely old enough to shave. Officers call this a quiet sector, a place to get your bearings. The line stretches for 27 miles through thick forest, each squad spaced so far apart you might go hours without seeing another American. Patrols move out at dawn, boots crunching over frozen leaves, rifles slung low, eyes searching the grey woods for movement. The biggest worry is boredom, not battle. Mail call is the highlight of the day, letters from home, rumours about Christmas packages on the way. Hot chow, when it comes, tastes like a feast. Some men try to scrape ice from their helmets for water. Others swap stories about what they will do when the war ends. The ground is hard as iron, and you learn quick that digging a foxhole means hacking through roots and frozen earth with numb fingers. Nights are longer than you thought possible. You huddle in a shallow scrape, listening to wind rattle the pines, the cold seeping through your blanket and wool uniform. Sometimes you hear distant artillery. Just practice, they say. Sometimes you hear nothing at all. Morale is steady, the mood almost light. Paris was liberated in August. The Germans are supposed to be finished. And talk drifts to home. Maybe, just maybe, you will be back by spring. Your sergeant tells you to stay sharp, but most men expect to ride out the winter with little more than sore feet and frostbitten ears. The forest feels endless, but the war feels far away. No one imagines that in a few days these woods will become a killing ground. For now, you are just another young soldier, waiting for a war that seems to be winding down. At exactly 5:30 in the morning on December the 16th, the sky erupts. German artillery opens up across the entire front, shells screaming in from nowhere, shaking the frozen ground beneath your foxhole. The blasts are so close you taste grit in your teeth and feel the shockwaves in your chest. Trees splinter, branches rain down, and somewhere to your left, a man is shouting for help. Then nothing but the roar of explosions and the whine of shrapnel through the pines. You barely have time to grab your helmet before the ground shakes again. The radio crackles, then goes dead. Wires are cut, runners vanish into the woods. Orders disappear in the chaos. You try to remember the plan, but there isn't one for this. A wall of noise, then the echo of boots and tank engines rolling closer through the fog. The world shrinks to the cold mud at your feet and the pounding in your ears. Visibility drops to almost nothing. Snow and mist swallow the forest, masking the approach of enemy infantry and armour. The sense of isolation is total. Air support is grounded. No friendly planes overhead. Just the distant rumble of engines and the metallic clatter of tracks. Across the line, more than 250,000 German troops and 1,400 tanks surge forward. 3 full armies hit the American positions at once, overwhelming thin lines held by scattered squads. Within minutes, the front is in motion, reports of paratroopers behind the lines, German commandos in stolen uniforms, crossroads falling to the enemy. You clutch your rifle, heart hammering, as the woods fill with the sounds of battle. The calm is gone. In its place, a fight for survival begins, with no way to know if help is coming or if you will see another sunrise. The weight on your shoulders starts with the M1 Garand, 10 pounds of walnut and steel, loaded with 8-round clips that snap in with a satisfying click. 80 rounds ride in your cartridge belt, each one counted and recounted, because no one knows when the next resupply will come. A bayonet dangles at your hip, more comfort than weapon, and a battered steel helmet sits heavy on your head. The uniform is olive drab wool, scratchy and stiff, never meant for the kind of cold that seeps through every seam. If you are lucky, you have an overcoat, but most men left theirs behind, trading weight for speed during the first panicked hours. Boots are leather, cracked and soaked, with no waterproof lining. Every puddle you step in is a gamble with trench foot. Overshoes are rare, galoshes almost mythical. Socks are always damp, and you swap them out whenever you can, but dry pairs run out fast. Your pack holds a single wool blanket, sometimes a spare shirt, maybe a pair of gloves if you did not lose them digging in the dark. K-rations come in small cardboard boxes. Cheese, crackers, a can of meat, a packet of instant coffee. In this cold, everything freezes solid. You wedge a tin under your arm to thaw it, or hold it in your mouth while you wait for feeling to return to your fingers. Water is rationed. You melt snow in your canteen cup over a candle stub, or scrape ice off your helmet. Hygiene slips quick. No time or warmth for shaving. No spare socks for days. The gas mask, issued to every man, is dead weight now, slung on your hip or stuffed in your pack, just another thing to lug through the snow. Each piece of gear is a burden and a lifeline, and you feel every ounce with every step. 0 degrees Fahrenheit, the kind of cold that makes your teeth ache and your breath hang in the air like smoke. Snow lies 2, sometimes 3 feet deep, swallowing boots with every step. The ground, already iron hard, turns foxholes into icy traps. Water seeps in by dusk and freezes solid by midnight. You wake with your blanket stiff as a board, hands numb, toes burning with a pain that means frostbite is coming. The cold is not just discomfort. It is a killer as real as the enemy's guns. When the artillery starts, the forest itself becomes a weapon. The Germans aim for the treetops, not the ground. Shells burst overhead, raining hot steel and splinters of wood straight down. Foxholes, once a refuge, offer no protection from fragments slicing through branches. Men huddle low, arms over their heads, praying the next burst will not find them. Tree bursts fill the air with a sharp, woody tang, and the screams that follow are muffled by snow. Wounded men face a new enemy, time. Plasma meant to save lives freezes in the bottle before it can be given. Medics, shivering and desperate, tuck plasma under their armpits, hoping body heat will thaw it enough for a transfusion. Morphine syrettes go stiff, needles snap. The aid station, a hole in the ground with a canvas roof, is colder than a meat locker. Some wounded never make it that far. Dragged on makeshift sleds, they bleed less in the cold, but risk freezing to death before help arrives. Every decision is a gamble. Wait for darkness to move, or risk a shell landing in the open. The cold shows no mercy, and neither does the war. Saint-Vith sits at the crossroads of the Ardennes, a small Belgian town that became the hinge of the entire German advance. On December 17th, 1944, as the enemy poured through the forest, battered remnants of the 106th Infantry and armoured columns of the 7th Armoured Division dug in around the town. The order was simple: hold at all costs. For 6 days, the defenders fought from house to house, turning cellars and shattered storefronts into strongpoints. German tanks rolled in from the east, engines growling, infantry fanning out behind them. American bazooka teams waited in alleyways, sometimes firing point-blank before scrambling to new positions. Artillery shells landed without warning, sending bricks and glass flying. Communications broke down, ammunition ran low, and every street became a killing ground. The price was staggering. Over 8,000 men from the 106th were captured in the chaos, an entire division swallowed up, the largest American surrender since Bastogne. But every hour Saint-Vith held out, the German timetable slipped further behind. Roads clogged with wrecked vehicles and burning tanks. Engineers dropped bridges and mined crossroads, forcing panzer columns to detour through deep snow and narrow forest tracks. Patrols harassed the flanks, snipers picked off officers, and supply convoys vanished in the night. The Germans, expecting a swift breakthrough, found themselves stalled, their fuel and momentum bleeding away. In the midst of this, acts of raw courage multiplied. Private First Class Francis Curry, just 19, braved machine gun fire to rescue 5 trapped comrades. Armed with a bazooka and anti-tank grenades, he forced 4 German tank crews to abandon their vehicles, holding a vital bridge long enough for others to escape. For his actions, Curry would later receive the Medal of Honor, but at the time, he was just another GI fighting to keep his friends alive. By December 23, 1944, the defenders could hold no longer. The order came to withdraw. Saint-Vith fell, but the delay was fatal for the German plan. The time bought in those frozen streets allowed Bastogne's defenders to dig in, gave Patton's tanks a chance to wheel north, and turned the tide of the battle. For the men who fought there, the memory of those 6 days would never fade. 6 days of grit, sacrifice, and a stubborn refusal to let the enemy pass. Bastogne sits at a crossroads deep in the Ardennes, its name barely known outside Belgium, until the winter of 1944. When the German attack smashed through the American front, the 101st Airborne was rushed in by truck, arriving with little more than rifles, a handful of mortars, and whatever ammunition could be scraped together. There was no time for winter gear, no time for extra food or spare socks. By December the 20th, Bastogne was ringed by enemy armour and infantry. The town's defenders, about 18,000 men, found themselves completely surrounded, cut off from reinforcements and resupply. Shells fell day and night. German tanks prowled the outskirts, probing for weak spots. The wounded filled cellars and makeshift aid stations. The only road out was a gauntlet of machine guns and mines. Each day, the perimeter shrank a little more. Foxholes became graves for some, lifelines for the rest. With every attack, ammunition ran lower. The cold, already brutal, seeped deeper. The men of the 101st, many fresh from Holland and still carrying the scars of earlier battles, dug in and waited for the next blow. On December the 22nd, a German delegation appeared under a white flag, carrying a formal surrender demand. The message promised certain destruction if the Americans refused. Brigadier General Malmedy Massacre, acting commander of the 101st, read the ultimatum and shook his head. His answer was one word: nuts. The reply baffled the German officers, but word spread through the ranks like fire. Laughter and disbelief cut through the tension. For a moment, the fear and exhaustion lifted. The men knew their commander would not give up, and neither would they. The siege tightened, food dwindled to cold scraps. Ammunition was rationed, bullet by bullet. Medics worked by candlelight, sometimes with no morphine, sometimes with no hope. Still, the line held. When the skies finally cleared on December the 23rd, Allied planes dropped bundles of supplies, ammunition, food, medical kits, parachuting into the battered town. It was not enough for comfort, but it meant survival. 6 days after the encirclement began, on December the 26th, the rumble of engines to the south signalled a break in the ring. Tanks from Patton's Third Army punched through, opening a narrow corridor. The siege was lifted. Bastogne had held. The Germans had failed to seize the crossroads, and the American defenders, cold, hungry, and battered, had become the symbol of a stubborn will that refused to break. December 17th, a day after the first barrage, word spreads through the lines like wildfire. Near Malmedy, 84 American prisoners are gunned down by SS troops, left sprawled in a snowy field. Survivors crawl away, some with bullets in their backs, carrying the story to every foxhole and aid station. There is no mistaking the message. Surrender is no guarantee of mercy. The shock turns quickly to anger. Men who hear about Malmedy grip their rifles tighter, jaws clenched, eyes hard. Rumours swirl. Some say the SS shot medics. Others whisper about executions of Jewish GIS. Official bulletins confirm enough to make every man wonder if the next white flag will be answered with a burst from an MG-42. As the news of Malmedy travels, another kind of threat creeps in from the woods. German commandos, trained to speak English and dressed in stolen American uniforms, slip through the chaos. They drive captured jeeps, swap dog tags, and answer to American ranks. At every checkpoint, suspicion rules. Military police quiz you on baseball scores, state capitals, the colour of Mickey Mouse's shorts, anything to trip up an imposter. One wrong answer can mean a bullet, no questions asked. Paranoia settles over the lines. Every shadow could be the enemy, every unfamiliar face a spy. Some men are shot on suspicion alone, and trust between units frays in the cold. The combination of atrocity and infiltration sets nerves on edge. Orders become sharper, patience shorter. The line between enemy and friend blurs in the snow and fog. For many, the rules of war feel suspended. What matters now is survival, and making sure no one else dies with their hands in the air. The memory of Malmedy hangs over every engagement, fueling a resolve that hardens with each passing day. After days of silence overhead, you hear the first distant roar of engines. P-47, Thunderbolts sweeping in low, sunlight glinting off wings as they hunt columns of German armour and trucks stalled on icy roads. The sky, once locked down by fog and snow, now belongs to the Allies. Bombs and rockets tear into convoys, scattering infantry and setting fuel trucks ablaze. For the first time since the barrage, hope stirs in the foxholes. The Luftwaffe tries to answer, launching hundreds of sorties around Christmas, but American fighters cut them down. Within a week, German air power is spent. Pilots are lost, planes burning on frozen fields. Momentum shifts. The counterattack rolls forward, but the ground tells a different story. Every mile reclaimed is marked by the cost. Bodies frozen in snowdrifts, burned out tanks, shattered towns. In 41 days of fighting, American forces suffer more than 89,000 casualties, 19,000 killed, 47,500 wounded, 23,000 missing or captured. The numbers barely hint at the reality. In some squads, only a handful of men remain. Frostbite and trench foot hit hard. 15,000 men pulled from the line because the cold turned their feet black and numb, boots frozen to flesh. Medics work with what they have, amputating toes and feet in barns and cellars, sometimes without anaesthesia. The price is everywhere, in the faces of those who limp away, and the silence left by those who do not. Even as the tide turns, every infantryman knows what it cost to survive the Bulge. Today, fewer than 1% of Bulge veterans remain to share what endurance in those frozen woods truly cost. As global tensions shift and the memory of sacrifice fades, the line between history and myth grows thin. Courage under fire is never guaranteed. It's a choice made in darkness. Every winter, that choice echoes, asking who will hold the line next. Thanks for watching. Share your thoughts below.